all of you sovereign beings of light. The show did get started a little bit late this morning, but better late than never, right? Today, I'm bringing on a new friend. She's been a friend for a couple of months. My friend Caroline Chang. I'm really excited to have you here with us this morning. Sorry, I got distracted by a comment on the inside. And have her with us talking about some really, really important information. So as you all know, Fearless and Free TV is about liberating you from the fear-based reality so that we can all move together and create a new reality based in love. And so the subject matter I'm bringing forward, I started getting the guidance a few weeks ago, now that I'm ready to start doing these live shows again, that it's time to take the conversations up a notch and dive deeper into some of the content that I haven't really dived into in the past so that we can transmute this information and really uplift it into its highest potential. So some of these conversations might be diving into uncomfortable places. And the reason that I'm now diving into these uncomfortable places is that in order to transcend them, we have to first acknowledge they exist. So today I'm bringing on my friend Caroline Chang. Caroline is the host and creator of Awake to Oneness radio, and I'll put her link up when I have her in. She's also a producer, she's an author, and I met Caroline at a near-death experiencers conference over the summer. So maybe she'll talk a little bit about that as well after we get into the real reason we're here today. And that's to talk about the issues of racism that presently exist in the United States. And I suspect it's around the world, but because we live here in the United States of America, we see it more prevalent here. So Caroline works as a podcast host. She's an inspirational author, lecturer, and a mentor. And she wrote a book. And the title of our book is The Last Words Kyle Said to Her While He Was Here in Physical. Kyle is her son who passed away a few years ago. And he still hangs out around her. I happen to know that because when we met, he caught my attention. So anyway, I'm going to bring Caroline in and we are going to have an amazing conversation. I hope you enjoy this show. We do banter back and forth. This is not an interview. It's a conversation. And so there will be a lot of back and forth conversation. It proves just the conversations that she and I've had in the past should be entertaining and inspiring and enlightening. So let's bring in Caroline and get to introduce her to all of you. Hello, Caroline. So good to see you again.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored. I truly am. I love having these conversations. Yes, I do.
Oh, you know one thing I forgot to mention to the audience, because you and I are working on this in the background. So I have let the audience know that a couple of new things are coming. And one of the new things that's coming is a show that you and I are going to be doing together called The Higher View. This is the first time I've told anybody about this show because we are still working on the intros. We are still lining up guests. And it's kind of like The View, only better from my perspective, because
from a higher view.
Higher perspective.
Higher view, yes.
Those women all, they talk about current events, but they, right? They're not exactly loving. And so this higher view show is being able to look at current events, whatever the events happen to be for that week, and looking at them from a higher perspective, from the spiritual perspective, from the loving perspective, because ultimately you and I and everyone else who's on that show, for those of you who are wondering who the other hosts are, this is not me hosting my own show. This is The Higher View. There are 5 hosts. It's myself, Caroline Chang, Joan of Angels. Y'all know my friend Joan of Angels. My friend Kathy Mason, who many of you know who she is as well. And then my friend Goddess Gloria, who a lot of you haven't met, but Goddess Gloria has been a friend of mine for about 10 years. So I'm really excited. She's actually a stand-up comedian. She's very funny and incredibly spiritual. Beautiful being. So between the 5 of us, we're going to be tackling these current events and bringing more love and more light and more understanding and a higher perspective into those so that we can transmute them. The way that we create love-based reality is by transmuting all the stuff that's happening in the fear-based reality. So wanted to give you a heads up about that show. So Caroline,
yes,
you were a school teacher in the school system in the 1980s. And I
Yes.
know today we're going to be talking about what I called in the title the real BLM, um,
Mm-hmm.
and racism and unity and oneness, and how we can take these narratives and flip them so that the we completely dismantle and dissolve the againstness and the division that's created by those, and how can we bring them back to oneness so that we no longer have these racism issues. Because one of the things I saw back in 2020 is that it's like having a wound, right? If you imagine you have, I use the medical field a lot. Imagine you have a wound and it's almost healed, but then somebody gets in there and pokes at it and re-inflames it. And so that's what it feels like with this particular subject matter. It's a wound that comes very close to being healed, but
Mm-hmm.
then just as it starts to heal over, somebody gets in there and digs at it and digs it back up again, and it's like opening the wound. It's like ripping out. Oh, this is a good visual I'm getting. It's like ripping off the scab,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and then we have to start the healing process all over again.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. It's interesting. Like you said, for me, it didn't start in 2020. Like I really
And that
feel
was
like
just the most recent inflammation.
right.
Yeah,
Okay, the most recent time someone picked at the scab. I get what you're
right.
saying. I get what you're saying. Um, okay, for me, I want if I can take you through some of my from the beginning, basically with me. I am a person that has brown skin. That's the vehicle I chose for this incarnation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I refer to it. When I make an I am statement now, because I am fully awake, my I am statement is I am a sovereign divine being of light. Matter of fact, just 2 days ago, I had a conversation with a friend I hadn't seen in a while, but we got on the phone and we were talking. And we were trying not to talk about politics, but politics came up, and I'm not into politics at all. But he was like, "Well, when you look in the mirror, what do you see?" That was his question. And my response was, I see I am a sovereign divine being of light. And that is all I identify with. And to be honest, now I'm awake and can express it that way. But before I was even awake, I always, my entire life, I never identified with the color of my skin. Never.
Mm.
My mom is extremely fair. Many people thought she was white, just because she's as fair as you. And my mom was actually born with blonde hair and blue eyes, because we have our ancestry, from what I understand, is Irish, um, Cherokee Indian, American, Native American. Sorry, don't want to say Indian, because that's not. They're Native American, Cherokee tribe, and of course African. So I have all three. And honestly, whenever I filled out to go to a school or to go to a job interview, and you fill out these forms, I always checked other. The first
Mm.
time, the first time I'm telling you, this has always been me. I mean, I've had my awakening in '07, but this has always been from the time I was a child. I never identified with the color of my skin. I remember I used to get teased in kindergarten because my mom would come pick me up. Like I said, my mom is so fair, people thought she was white. And so the kids would tease me and say, "You're adopted." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And it's like, "Well, your mom is white." I'm like, "No, she's not. She's just light skinned." That's how I would, reply as a 5-year-old.
Right.
She's not. She's just light skinned. Yeah. So that's a 5-year-old. But it's like, again, I didn't identify with the color of my skin. And then, so when I first heard the term Black Lives Matter, I'll never forget, because it was during a summer. For me, I think it was like this. I can't remember if it was the summer of 2015 or summer of 2016. But I was being interviewed. And I think it's funny. because I launched my show in 2015. My show is Awake to Oneness Radio, and my focus is oneness and unity. And because that summer, the whole Black Lives Matter movement was like big in the news, which I don't watch, which I stopped watching over 21 years ago. Didn't just stop watching it. But anyway, because of that, I was invited by a local journalist who had his studio set up in his house and everything. And I believe he actually invited me just to ask me that question. Yeah, seriously. Okay, she's all into oneness and unity. Let me ask her this question. So he asked me, what about Black Lives Matter? And I was like, all lives matter equally, always, period. All lives matter equally. When I first heard the term Black Lives Matter, I got one of those. Like, what the? Because the terminology itself screams separation. We're not separate. My skin being brown and your skin being more olive-like, or like no,
it's pretty olivey. I have no idea how my skin turned out this dark because I am English and Irish, and there's a drop of anything in me that isn't Western European. And I did the DNA test just to be sure. You're gonna laugh. So I did the DNA test because my daughter has extraordinary curly, gorgeous curly hair. She has to wear she has to use African hair products on her crazy curly hair.
Right.
And I grew up extremely racist. I grew up in a fundamentalist cult where, and not racist to the degree of you got to lynch everyone who's dark skinned, like not to that. But it was more on a religious scale of they're the spawn of Satan, so you're not even allowed to talk to them. I'm not kidding. It's really bad. Okay. And it was more like you're not allowed to talk to them. If you even touch a Black person, you're going to go to hell. If you so I was terrified.
What area of the country?
It was in Montana.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd never even seen a person of dark skin until I came to visit my grandma in Los Angeles when I was 12. And I was so afraid of these kids because they were the offspring of Cain. It's what we were told. They were the most cursed, and that they were supposed to be our slaves in heaven and all this crap.
Right.
And so as a kid, that was ingrained in me. I was terrified of these other dark-skinned kids.
Okay.
So, so I went and got the DNA test, almost hoping that my daughter had some Black genetic background, like it came from my husband. My husband was adopted, so he had no idea what his family heritage was.
Genetics were.
I almost wanted there to be some African in there, so I could just like a part of me wanted to like go back to my family and a little bit. There isn't a drop of African in her either. So,
all right. Well, what I was about to say about the skin color, like I said, I am brown, and I love my color, and I love your color. To me, it's no different than the car that I drive. No, right. I've had 9 different cars in this lifetime, and they've all been different colors. My skin color is no different than the car that I drive because my body is just a vehicle for getting around in this incarnation. And I chose it. I chose it before birth. We all choose, okay? It's like those video games where we can choose our avatar. Okay,
exactly. I call this my avatar all the time.
That's all it is. It's an avatar. That's all it is. So, and I'm like, okay, I love horses. Do I care what color the horse is, as long as the horse doesn't throw me? I love horses. I love dogs. I'm not a big cat person, but I always say people that love cats, people that love horses, people that love dogs, people that love any kind of animal, do they care what color that animal is? Of course not. So my question is, why is humanity the only species on the planet that looks at color?
I can tell you why. Well, you and I both know why, right? Because those who are working on behalf of the dark side of the contrast, as I call it. Right. I don't do good, bad, good, evil, any of that, right? We as human beings agreed to experience the contrast and learn through the contrast. And
Exactly.
so there are some beings here who play the role of the dark side of the contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And so those beings who play the role of the dark side of the contrast, some of them are here who play the role of what I refer to as the controllers. So they know they can use fear and use division to keep us from becoming united. So every narrative they can think of to keep us divided and conquered has been used since the beginning of time to keep humanity from unifying.
Exactly.
And so this whole thing about your different shade of skin is a narrative that was created intentionally
Yes.
to keep us divided and conquered.
Exactly.
And to keep us from unifying in oneness.
Exactly.
It's complete. It's you and I both know it is completely absurd.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
It's absurd. The every single one of us is equally loved by our Creator,
Yes.
equally worthy,
Yes.
and it has nothing to do with the shade of our skin.
Exactly. And in essence, I say we are all one.
Yes.
There is no separation. And that has been proven scientifically, because it was science, it was quantum physics that woke me up to the truth of universal oneness. There is no separation. Like you said, I love the yin yang symbol because that shows that's the symbol of all that is God, source, whatever name, universe, whatever name you want to call all that is. Okay, I use the word all that is, or the phrase all that is, rather than God, because it means there is nothing outside of God. And we live hundreds, if not thousands, of lifetimes, and even here on this planet, and we choose what role we're going to play and it has nothing to do with skin color, but we choose what role we're going to play. If, okay, this time I want to go down there and I want to be the bad guy. Okay, it's a role, it's a play. It's like Shakespeare said, all of the world is a stage, and all of the people on it are actors. We're all actors in this game of life. And again, I'm like you. I don't use certain words. People say we're in a spiritual warfare. Not me. What I say, we are in a spiritual chess match, and the light is already won because the light always wins because everything initially comes from the light. Okay,
Right.
We choose to be born and forget who we are, and we chose roles before we were born. We picked our avatar, what color we're going to be, if we're going to be a woman, if we're going to be a man, tall, short, all of that. We choose our avatar, we choose the reason and our purpose for coming. And we knew, okay, as soon as you get there, as soon as you pop out of mommy, you're not going to remember who you are. But it's actually not that soon. I think they say, from what I've heard channel messages say, that most children have some remembrance of who they were in the past up until the time around six or seven, where they just kind of get ingrained in the matrix, the 3D matrix. But a baby now, if a baby could talk, baby could tell you a lot. They'll tell you, but so what I'm saying, we choose all of that, and we choose before we're born. Okay, I think I want to play the dark side this time because there's no judgment. It's all God. We're all one. So why would we say, oh, I don't like that person because of the color of their skin, or I hate that person because of the color of their skin? You're only hating yourself because that person is you, and you are that person. There is no separation. And that, like I said, my awakening was in 2007 to that universal truth. But I love the fact that even as a small child, I had that understanding, but without the words and the conscious knowledge. It was a soul knowledge that I never let go of. Yeah. So
yeah. And so this was part of the discussion, right? When that people there's a narrative out there, as you and I both know, they're continually evolving this narrative of division and separation.
Yes.
And so what I've seen over the years, once I became aware of, so my experience when I was 12 years old, I came to California and my grandma lived in Inglewood. I don't know if you know where Inglewood is. It was in the 1950s. My grandma moved there. It was a very Caucasian little community. And then it became Hispanic. And
there's Inglewood, New Jersey, and I'm originally
it's Inglewood, California.
Oh, okay.
It's an area of Los Angeles.
Okay.
And so she had lived there for like 4 years, and she'd seen the neighborhood turn so many times into the now it became to the point where she was like the token white woman at this particular time, right? And
Okay.
but she'd been there for so many years. Everybody just she was like the grandma
Grandma.
for this community.
Yeah.
But all the kids who were outside playing were African kids, right? So I my parents would not let me go outside and play with the kids because they were cursed, right? And me being the free spirited person I've always been,
Yeah.
right? They called me rebellious, but I was free spirited.
Right.
I wanted to go outside and find out for myself.
Right.
So I remember going outside, I was playing with the kids, and there was this one little girl who was my age, and I was so terrified, so afraid to talk to her. I wanted to know what she felt like because I thought she was going to feel like a snake because of the way that I was raised, that people with dark skin were from, Satan. And so I'm picturing as a kid, I'm thinking about the snake in the garden. And if I touch her, she's going to curiosity.
Right.
I wanted to know, like,
Right.
I want to see what this girl feels like. And I remember I touched her on the arm and she was soft and warm, just like me.
Mm. Yes.
And I knew in that moment, my parents were wrong
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
all that. So that was it's what I've noticed is we have these little awakening moments throughout our
Mm-hmm.
life. I mean, we have the
Right,
big
right,
ones,
right,
right?
right. No, but there's always little ones. Yes, yes,
These
yes.
little ones. And this was one of those. I was 12 years old and realized my parents were wrong about that.
Mm.
This
Well,
girl she was kind and she was funny and she was soft and she was warm. And then I got in trouble for playing with her. But
no, I get what you're saying. Well, from the time I was 11 years old, my parents, I always went to Catholic school up until the time I was 11 years old. And when I was in Catholic school, I'm trying to remember because it's so long ago, I remember K through second grade, it was mostly African American children in Catholic school. But then we changed schools in second, third grade, where it was more, actually it was, I would say majority were white, but there were a few of us. Okay. 11 years old, that all changed for me. From 11, from sixth grade through high school, I was in an entirely all white school. Entirely. I lived in Oakland, New Jersey. When people say Oakland, I have to say Oakland, New Jersey, because people think of Oakland, California. No,
right.
There's an Oakland, New Jersey, and this was in from 75 to 80. I was actually no, it had to be even earlier than that, 74 to 80. I lived in Oakland, New Jersey, where there was exactly 2 Black families in the entire town.
Wow.
And in the school was my cousin, who was my age, my brother, who was 2 years older than me, and the other family was a Walker family, where they had one son had already graduated high school, but the other son was Tony, who was about a year older than me. So it was in the school from sixth grade through graduation was myself, my cousin, my brother, and Tony. Okay, and actually my brother graduated too, so then it was just me, my cousin, and Tony. And then Tony graduated, then it was just me and my cousin. Okay, that's how it was. Okay, we were the only, and I was the only girl. My brother, my cousin were boys, and Tony was a boy. I was the only. And those were my happiest times in school, were those years. There was one time I turned 60 this year. I know I don't look it, but anyway, I turned 60 this year. And I can tell you there was only one time in my entire life I experienced racism. I was running track. It was sophomore year. I was about 15 years old, and I was running track. And we went to a track meet. And there were at least four other schools at this track meet, right? And I was a sprinter, and I remember thinking, oh, good, my race is like one of the first race, so I can race, get it over with, and relax the rest of the day. So I did that. So it was a beautiful sunny Saturday, and I'm just chilling out I ran my race. I can't remember if I won or not, but I used to come close, even if maybe second. Anyway, So I ran my race and I'm just chilling. I'm like, oh, this is a gorgeous day. I lay down on the grass. I'm looking up at the sky. I'm in heaven. Then this coach from another, the other thing, I was the only, it was a meet with 4 different schools. I was the only Black one on the field. Okay. All right.
Wow.
So I'm lying down on the grass, looking up, just enjoying the day. And this coach from another team comes and lays beside me. I'm like, I'm 15 years old, a coach. And now we know what color he was. Okay.
Right.
Obviously white. And he's a coach. I'm not talking about a boy. I'm talking about a man, a grown man. So I jumped up in shock because I'm thinking to myself, what is this man lying down next to me? And he says to me, just give it back. You won't get in trouble. Just give it back. I'm clueless. And he repeats himself, just give it back. You won't get in trouble. Just give it back. And then 3 girls on his team come over and say, Coach so-and-so, we found them. One of the girls were missing a pair of cleats. And because she was missing a pair of cleats, he assumed I'm the only Black person in eyesight. Like I stole a pair of cleats. And the 3 girls came over and said, Coach so-and-so, we found them. He got up and didn't say a word. Didn't say, oh, and I honestly don't remember if I even told my coach about that incident. But I was like, are you kidding me? But in my entire 60 years in this incarnation, that's the only time I've ever experienced racism.
Mm. And you know what? And one of the things that I have found is that, well, one, you and I both know that any thoughts of racism are learned.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely no one comes into human form with judgment about another person.
You're absolutely right.
It is learned. And you, from your own experience, is that what I know about human beings, that is that the heart of every human being is love, is compassion, is understanding. Yes, it is the makeup of the human being.
Yes.
We are not born with hate. I mean, that might be a few people that are, because that might be part of their karmic choice to come in with a dis-ease, let's put it that way.
Yes.
Very, 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 very few people. And so this division has to be indoctrinated into us. Either, in my case, it was indoctrinated through my parents' religion, or now it's being indoctrinated into humanity through the media.
Yes.
And there's this push right now, from what I understand, of trying to indoctrinate it into the school system.
With critical race theory. Everything. Yeah, BLM and critical race theory have one goal, is to create division. That is their goal. Because like I said, I'm 60 years old. I was born in 1962. I am a woman of color, and I've lived in Jersey, and I've lived in I've been in all white schools. I've been the only one on a job, only one of color on a job. And I have never, except for that one time running track, has never experienced racism. So what BLM is all about is to create racism. What critical race theory is all about is to create racism. And that's my opinion. But that's how I feel, honestly.
Well, and I kind of got that impression too, because one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that every time humanity starts unifying, the dark side of the contrast will find a narrative to pull us apart again, to create more division.
Divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer. It is the oldest game in the book.
Yes.
It is like if they were trying, and it actually is, I think, in the art of war, it's probably in there, of the number one rule, if you're going to start a war, is to divide and conquer. And we know this, right? United we stand, divided we fall. We know that.
Yes. Exactly.
And so the contrast is doing everything it can to prevent us from becoming united. And everything it can to prevent us from becoming unified and preventing us from remembering the true essence of oneness that we all are. And that, so these narratives were created, and it's almost like that every time we start unifying, every time we start coming together and remembering the truth,
Right.
that we are divine, that we are all divine, having a divine love, having a human experience. Exactly. And that every time we start remembering that, the media will find a way to drive us apart.
Exactly.
If it's not Republicans versus Democrats, black versus white, man versus woman, gay versus straight,
yes.
normal versus LGBT, right? Or what's another one that my daughter uses? Neurodivergent. Normal versus neurodivergent. That's one of the new things.
That's a new one for me. I haven't heard that. As I mentioned earlier, I literally stopped watching news September 2001. I know many people the last 2 years have stopped watching. I stopped watching news in September of 2001, and I'll never forget. I say to people that are not spiritual, I use the word intuition. My inner intuition told me, yelled at me, literally. I'll never forget it. It was one of those moments you can't forget. I was making, the news was on. I was in my bedroom. The news was on the TV, but I wasn't really paying attention to it. I was making up my bed. So I'm making up my bed, and my intuition, my inner guidance, what I call my higher self, yelled at me and said, turn off that news and don't ever turn it back on again. I heard that loud and clear. I literally said, why? Aloud, looking around. Well, I said it out like, why? And I didn't get an answer. And then I walked, but I was obedient because I've always been obedient to that inner guidance, even when I didn't know what it was. Now I know what it is. So, but I was obedient. I walked over to that TV. I turned off that TV. I have never watched a second of mainstream news since. And so this was September 2001. We all know what happened September of 2001. And this was a week after that. Okay. I didn't find out until 11 years later why my inner guidance told me to do that. And it was the anniversary of 9/11 where my higher self said, now go on YouTube and see what really happened that day. And so I went on YouTube. I watched 3 documentaries back to back, which you won't find on YouTube anymore. But the first one was Families for 9/11 Truth. I watched the whole thing. Then right after that, I watched Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. I watched the whole thing. The third one was Building 7, The Smoking Gun. I watched the entire thing. Then, do you know to this day, 50% of Americans do not know that 3 buildings went down in New York City that day? 50%.
Yeah, they really didn't cover the third one.
Of course, because that was a smoking gun. Okay, so with my own eyes, I saw that everything the media news has said about 9/11 was a lie. I saw it with my own eyes. Okay, and then I was like, oh, so that's why you wanted me to turn off the news 11 years ago. And so,
your higher self didn't want you to get programmed.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Exactly, with lies and 2 things, lies and low frequency. Because the other thing I studied journalism. The first thing they teach you in journalism, if it bleeds, it leads. Meaning the bloodier, the gorier the story, that's what we're leading with to keep you in a state of fear. Right. So with the low frequency of fear, my higher self was protecting me from that low frequency of fear and the lies. And I thank you, higher self.
Because they use, I mean, there's a reason it's called television programming for a reason, right?
It's totally all of it. It's a CIA mind control program, and it has a name called Project Mockingbird. They were caught. The CIA was caught in the late 50s. There's even Senate hearings. I think those pieces of those Senate hearings might still be on YouTube. There were Senate hearings. CIA was caught in the late 50s infiltrating the news media. And even though they were caught, you think they stopped?
Oh, heavens no.
The entire news media now is a CIA a mind control program, and the name of it is Project Mockingbird. I tell people, do your own homework. You can find it.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know it was called Project Mockingbird, because I refer to them as Mockingbird Media, which I know, and it's so obvious.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand that the media gets the script in at about 4:00 in the morning. They get their script, it's put up on the teleprompters, and they read their script. They're all saying exactly the same thing. They're told what to say. And it becomes a program, right? So the one that's the most obvious to me was, because I've seen this footage go around before, which is, this is a danger to our democracy. This is a danger to our democracy. Right? And every newscaster across the country is saying, this is a danger to our democracy.
Well, now in that documentary on Building 7, the smoking gun, that a lot of people don't even know about, that there's a newscaster. She's from the UK. She's standing in front of a window, and behind her, Building 7, you can see the building standing behind her. 26 minutes before, and this is all it's on YouTube.
Oh, I actually saw this. Yeah, I saw that.
26 minutes before that building actually went down, she was reporting that it had gone down. They gave her the news, the script too soon. 26 minutes too soon. So she's a psychic, okay? Because she's saying it's already gone down and the building is standing behind her. That's why they call that is the smoking gun. Anybody can see that building that only had a fire. There was a fire was in the CIA offices, right? In the building. That's all there was. And it went down like a pancake. I mean, it just free fall. I'm like, really? So it's just, to me, it's like, you know what went out the window in March of 2020? Logic and common sense went right out the window, because all they were, and it's literally, they're brainwashed, mind control, and hypnotized. I say it's a combination of all three. They're being brainwashed, mind control program, which is very strong, because they frequencies. So mind control program and hypnotize. And they can't see but what that television tells them. Okay, the television tells me to believe this, I'm going to believe this. Okay.
And that's why it's called television. It is being used to tell people what to see, what to think.
Yeah.
And they tell us the vision they want us to create, because when you work on behalf of the dark, you don't actually have vision.
Exactly.
You have agendas, and you can set goals, but they can't see in the dark. They need the visionary human mind to actually create the vision. So they give us television. They tell us what they want us to envision, and then our creative mind create that vision.
Exactly.
And so there, in the future, I see us. What I was seeing a few years ago is love hacking the airwaves. So we are love hacking the airwaves. That's what you and I are doing here. And we're going to start using this television to tell better stories, to tell new vision. So we are going to be hijacking the television as well.
And telling truth in love and light.
Yes, absolutely. And it will get to a point where if they want to be entertained, we're the only thing they see. They won't even be able to find the fear and the darkness and the lies.
Yeah, and it's already happening. Do you know the ratings for CNN and MSNBC is like in the toilet? And
Netflix and all of them.
Yes, the ratings for Truth Networks is like sky high. So yeah, it's already happening, which is great. It
is great. The other thing too, which is making it really difficult for people to be able to decipher the truth from narrative fiction. That's the first time I've heard it called that, but that's exactly what it is, narrative fiction. Is that now the technology has gotten so good that everything is green screened, like the fake background that's behind me.
I gotta get me, right? show. For our
Mine's obviously not that good because if I move, you can tell it's very obviously green screen. But there's green screen and sound biting and editing and photoshopping. And so much of what people see on TV and 3D animation now is so good that it takes a real discerning eye to be able to tell a difference between what's real and what's 3D, what's animation. And so because of these advances in technology, it's really, really difficult to decipher what is true and what is a show.
And you know what I tell everybody? Use the heart. Don't use this. Don't use this, because all of this it's a receiver of information. It's a transmitter of information, but it's a receiver, the brain. Okay. And the brain, though, is limited to what we learn, like what your parents were teaching you. That's up here in the brain. That wasn't in the heart. That was in your brain. Right. So when we're truly trying to decipher for ourselves, I said, don't look outside of yourself to find truth. Look within your heart and soul. Shut out the 3D matrix completely. Go into nature. Shut it out and maybe put on a headset with some high frequency meditation music or something like that. And you ask your higher self the question and you listen to your heart. The answer will come here, not here. That's what I tell people all the time.
Yeah, because the mind is very easily programmed. It's like a computer, right? It just that's really what it does. And as I tell people, the human design is extraordinary. Our minds have the capacity to create just thought.
Yes.
And it's also incredibly easy to program.
Exactly.
So we have to be really careful about what it gets programmed with.
Yes. And we are creating individually and collectively, but it starts individually. We are creating individually from our true core beliefs. You know, what we truly believe in the core of our being is what we are creating our reality. And then collectively, because we're all connected, collectively, we're creating the collective reality. Yes, we are creators. Right. We are creator beings. Yes.
And that's why it's so important to always check our beliefs.
Yes.
Because if your core beliefs were indoctrinated into you as a child, then we got to check those core beliefs. If one of your core beliefs is it's not safe, it's not safe, it's not safe, it's not safe, then that's going to be the driving, which is why I talk about fear-based beliefs. Everything I do is about recognizing your fear-based beliefs. So if if that's one of your core beliefs, then you've got to be willing to dig in and recognize that's one of your core beliefs and be willing to do the work to change that. And the great thing about beliefs is they can be changed.
Yes, of course. And that's the other thing I talk about. Beliefs, yes, can be changed, but that knowing from the heart center, like when I say I know that my higher self told me to turn off that news 21 years ago, that was a knowing, and that can't be the knowing that comes from the heart and soul, which you know the difference. That knowing can't be changed. But the other thing I want to say about BLM is that they have this whole society in the US. I can't talk about other countries, but in the US, they have a double standard for racism. Meaning it's okay for a Black person to be racist. Seriously. Right. It's just totally okay, you know, but for a white person to be racist? Hell no. That's within the Black community, I know for sure. And so white people are afraid to say anything because, I'm white, I better not say anything. But a Black person can say all they want. I've had Black people tell me they're proud to be a racist, literally. Okay. And they think that's okay. They think it's okay. And so I'm like, and I said this to a friend of mine the other day, I'm tired of this double standard. That it's okay for a Black person to be racist, but it's not. I've had 2 Black people tell me a Black person can't be racist. 2 Black people tell me that. And 1 Black person told me I'm racist and I'm proud of it. Now they tell me that because of the color of my skin. They wouldn't tell you that. Okay. So I hear it. Okay. And I'm like, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the double standard. Racism is racism, and it is not okay for a person of color to be racist. Period. Bottom line. It's not
Right.
okay for anyone to be racist. But get rid of this double standard. Like even, okay, you'll get censored on social media now if you put White Lives Matter. You can put Black Lives Matter all day long, but you put White Lives Matter and you get censored.
Right.
Are you freaking kidding me? I love it. I love it what Kanye and Candace did the other day, where they both came out with the White Lives. I don't know if you saw it. They came out with, oh, they did. The Candace and Kanye came out with White Lives Matters T-shirts on, the two of them. I love that, you know. But yeah, that will get censored. That will get censored on social media if you say White Lives Matter. So maybe, we might get censored. So because I'm saying even though I'm a Black person saying White Lives Matter, we might get censored. But it's true. Why did?
And the frustration is when people say all lives matter, that immediately makes you racist.
Yes, that's true.
And the truth is,
when in what universe does all lives matter? Because that's
all lives matter. All lives matter equally.
All lives matter equally, always. Okay.
And so, and you know what? And
that T-shirt, yes.
And if Black Lives Matter, it really was about what on the surface it's supposed to stand for. It would actually Black Lives Matter also.
Yes.
Because there are some people who don't think Black Lives Matter as much.
Right. Which is true. I mean, like you said, I was shocked when you told me about your upbringing. Seriously. Because even though we've known each other for several months, I did not know that about your upbringing. And I'm sure that is still going on in some families, some, religions. Yeah. And so
they're not going to come right out and admit it. They're not going to come right out and say it. But absolutely, in this fundamentalist Mormonism that I grew up with, they still believe.
Yeah. There's still the KKK out there. I know. Matter of fact, I've been here in the Pocono Mountains for 31 years. And I think the year before, I bought my house in 91. And I think the year before I moved up here, it was very few of us of color up here at that time. Now it's kind of, to me, it seems 50-50. But at that time, I met a neighbor who was of color. And she said, there was just down the road, a KKK rally or KKK parade the year before. I was like, oh, okay. I'd never seen a KKK, but I know the KKK still exists. The skinheads still exist. Nazis still exist. The religion you grew up in still exists. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in the way that the media is trying to make it out to be. And I know that because I'm a living example. I'm 60 years old. I wasn't just born the other day. I lived through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, up until through the 2000s. And I only once in my life. And I've been around more white people than Black. And only once in my life have I personally experienced racism. So it is not that prevalent. No,
not at all. It's like 99.9% of people are not racist. And the media, that one fringe, right? That 0.1%.
Yes.
And makes that look like that's normal.
And that's really, you're talking about the 1.1 on the white side. On the Black side, it's even bigger, because on the Black side, they believe they have the right to be racist, or they believe they can't be racist. Okay. So on that side, it's even bigger. And I can tell you, as a person of color, I can tell you the racism is way more prevalent on the Black side than on the white side. From my personal experience, you might get people might be sending hate mail to this show. You know what? They can shove it. I'm speaking my truth. I'm sharing my life experience, and I am a person of color in the United States of America. Okay,
so you know what, Caroline? I didn't know. I actually knew about the racism in the Black community from a friend of mine who was also Black. So a woman that I worked with a few years ago, and she was telling me how extreme it is within the African community. Like she said, you have to be, if you're too Black, you're I'm not going to say the word because that probably would get censored, right?
Right.
And if you're too white, then you're
It's censored anyway, but it's all good.
right. So she's like, it's like you have to be medium black. If you're medium black, you're okay. If you're too black, then you're too
Well,
black.
yeah,
And if you're too
well,
white,
that's another thing. Like I said, my mom. I would try. See, I don't have my parents' picture. My well, that one. No, my mom's wedding picture. My mom and father's wedding picture. Because when you look at it, it does look like an interracial couple getting married in the 60s, and they weren't interracial. My mom wasn't white; she just looked white.
that might have raised a few eyebrows.
Yeah, but no, I mean, my mom's whole side of her family were very fair skinned, and yeah, my grandmother said, "Well, you don't want to really date anybody too dark, you know." And she accepted my father because he was a doctor, he was a dentist, so it's all okay. He's okay because he's a professional. Seriously, I'm being honest. I'm sharing with you how it is in the Black community. So yes, and this is like when I was growing up. Yeah, they talked about the show. Oh, okay. Let me see. Oh, it used to be called. This is what it was called back in the day: the brown paper bag test. Seriously. Okay, you know the because I'm about the shade of a brown paper bag.
Right.
So if you were darker, seriously, to get into clubs in New York, I was too young, but I was told about this. To get into clubs in New York, you had to pass the brown paper bag test, meaning they would hold a brown paper bag up to your hand, and if you were darker than the brown paper bag, you couldn't come in. Seriously, this is the Black community. All right. So
Really?
yes, it's called the brown paper bag test. I just heard about it recently. I was like, what the freak? So I'm telling you that the whole concept of racism is more ingrained in the community of color than it is in the white community. It truly is.
Yeah. I know what's really funny about that. When you say the white community, because I'm 100% European.
Right.
But my skin is actually darker than a lot of Hispanic people.
You might be darker than my mom.
I could be. I just have olive skin. It's got nothing to do with anything. And the frustrating thing for me, you and I both know the shade of a person's skin, the avatar that they're in, has nothing to do with the quality of the being.
Exactly. It's the content. I love Dr. King's phrase, the content of your heart.
Your character.
Okay.
Oh, your heart.
I don't know if it's a heart or character, one of them, but it's the content inside. And that's how every person I meet on the planet, I know I'm going to give as much love and light as I can. And what you give me back, it doesn't matter what color you are. I mean, I meet people in all shades some are nicer and some are not so nice. Okay. And all shades. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has to do with what's inside your heart. Yep. And how awake you are. Because we are, so there's no judgment for those that are asleep. Okay, so we are all sovereign divine beings of light. Some of us know that. Some of us are extremely asleep to that truth. And so I have nothing but love for everybody, regardless. But I say it's you can tell how a person treats you is how awake they are to who they truly are.
That's right. And some people just haven't remembered yet.
Exactly. And not every soul has chosen to remember in this lifetime. That was their soul plan, not to wake up. So there are souls that have chosen in this life not to wake up, and it's okay because life is eternal. We know that. And like you said, we met at a IANS conference, which is IANS stands for International Association of Near-Death Studies. It's a science. There's science behind IANS. But and for me, I'm grounded in science. And I see how science bridges spirituality, how everything that spirituality has been teaching us for eons, science is now just learning. But life is eternal. When you know, like breathing, like life is, I know, right, like breathing, my son is right here with me. When you know, like breathing, life is eternal, you know that it's okay if a person, they decide to sleep through this lifetime. Okay, that's their soul's purpose.
Yeah,
That's their karma they're living out, and there's no judgment at all. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
and that's what I'm trying to really instill in people is to be able to understand there's a difference between human choice
yes,
and soul choice. So people get really frustrated that this person's not waking up or angry at this particular person. Understanding when if we're able to recognize, and I've used this before, and I know you'll love this. If we think about this with this video game we're playing, this
okay, yes,
video game we're playing is called The Great Human Experiment,
yes,
and it is, part of that experiment is Iona Soul. I'm going to pop in down there. I'm going to forget this is a video game. I'm going to forget everything. And then I'm going to see if I can remember who I am.
exactly.
It's like the ultimate soul challenge. This
Yes,
video game we're playing is the ultimate soul challenge. It's
yes.
like Destiny 15.
Which you know what? I have not played a video game since the mid '90s, and I remember one Christmas morning, I had gotten in, was at my mom's house, and I thought my kids were young, and I got them Dr. Mario. And I was addicted that whole Christmas day. I'm playing Dr. Mario. And I said, you know what? This is addicting. I am not touching this thing again. And I have not touched the video game since the mid '90s in Dr. Mario. But science has proven that we are living in a simulation. And what it is it's a dream of our creation individually and collectively. It is a dream. And what you want to do, the ultimate goal to me in the dream is to wake up in the dream before you leave your body. Because when you leave your body, the first thing I believe, and I have never had a near-death experience, I know a lot of people that have, but I believe the first thing you realize when you leave your body, you look down at it and like, oh, that was all a dream of my own creation. That's an important piece to understand. Nobody's doing it to you. That was a dream of your own creation. So the goal is to wake up in the dream before you leave your body.
Yes. Yeah. So
Mhm.
what I've tried to explain to people is that our higher self is actually the one with the joystick, right?
Yes.
This
Yes.
is
Yes.
just the
Yes. Yes.
avatar. Our higher self is actually the one playing the game. And if we can
Exactly.
just remember, oh, I'm the avatar in the game. My higher self is actually the one playing it. So if
Yes.
you want to know how to play the game,
Yes.
tune up,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Go
Yes.
into your heart space and ask your higher self, okay, what move do I do next? Who do I
Yes.
talk to next? What do I do next? And have that conscious awareness
Exactly.
that how do I play this game in the way that is the most loving, that serves the highest and greatest good, that is on purpose. And
Yes. That's
our
right.
higher self is just waiting for us to have that communication, to
Exactly.
understand that this is not an empty avatar just running around with no game plan.
Right, exactly. And when the avatar thinks, oh, I can do it all on my own, and ignores that intuition we all have. And so many times that ego, like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I know, I hear you, but I'm not going to do that. That's like if I said to my higher self when I had no clue, turn off the television, turn off the news, I could have said, no, I don't know why, so I'm not going to do it, So we get that intuition to do something. And when we don't do it, that's when we're allowing the avatar that is not all wise. Our higher self has all the wisdom, and we have access to that wisdom, but we cut off that access when we decide we're not going to listen. We're going to do it our way.
Right. So we let the egoic self, the personality self do it. And then it's kind of like, well, that's when you trip over boulders and you get
Yes.
stuck, right? You get stuck in the gutter, you hit a wall.
Yes. It's like, oh, fall off a cliff, but didn't die in the hospital, laid up, and like, okay, maybe I should have listened,
In hindsight, yeah. And so it's always there. And we just need to listen. And
Yes.
before we close out, because it has actually been an hour already, which is amazing. You and I could talk for days.
Forever. We
Is one of the things I actually wanted to say is I discovered years ago, like you, what I tell people is I have found that science is actually closer to spirituality than religion is.
Definitely.
And I think that's why religion has always been at odds with science, because science forces religion to evolve. Where
Exactly.
religion is our way is the only way, don't question anything, and science says question everything.
And in truth, I have respect for all religions. But in truth, when I woke up to the universal truth of oneness, that we're all one with each other, all one with God, when I woke up to that, I realized that was the issue with religions. They separate.
They create division.
Yes, anything that creates division and separate is not of God, and God is all. So true. Very true. In science, now quantum physics has said that everything is energy, and that energy is interconnected and interdependent. That energy is one thing. We're all a wave of love. That's what we are. Yep. And we're all a drop of God, a holographic, meaning we are all of God in a drop, because you live in a holographic universe. And this has all been proven scientifically.
I love that.
And science has just gotten to the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. Yes.
Oh, yeah, because we're still discovering. This is what, so I'm a little bit of a science geek for that, and I love quantum physics.
Yes.
In that science knows that it doesn't know everything. Right. That's why everything is a theory.
Yes.
And what's so great about it is, it's even the Big Bang theory. Scientists say the Big Bang is the absolute.
Right.
It's a theory. Right. It is a theory until a better theory comes along. And I love that continual willingness to expand and change and understand.
Right.
And that's the way spirituality is, right? When you have a spiritual awakening, you know that it's not, I have an awakening and I suddenly know everything. Absolutely no one is fully enlightened. It's impossible.
Right. It's a process. And it's a process of staying in tune with the higher self. But what I say with the Big Bang, what happened before the Big Bang? Because we also know that time is an illusion. All there is the now. So when we talk about the Big Bang, it's like, okay, what happened before the Big Bang? Because it's only the now, And so I'm not sure I understand too much about what that whole Big Bang theory is about. It was the quantum physics, which says that everything is energy. That energy is interconnected, interdependent. That energy is one thing. My name for that energy is love. And I'm going to say unconditional love. That's all it is unconditional love. Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. Or divine love. We are all divine love having a human experience. And that's all it is. It is all that is.
Yes.
And everything that exists is an expression of that.
Yes.
And which is why fear is just an illusion.
There's nothing, when you wake up to the truth of who you are as a sovereign divine being of light, when you wake up to that truth, there is nothing to fear, because you realize there's nothing outside of you. You're all one with everything. So what is there to fear? Nothing at all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, Caroline. I just realized I didn't put your banner down here. This is how you find Caroline. So this radio show, Caroline has interviewed some of the most well-known spiritual teachers on the planet. And you have extraordinary guests over there. So I want to make sure that people know to go to your radio show.
Yes. And also go to YouTube. Just remember, type in Awake with the #2 Oneness Radio in YouTube. You'll find me there. I have a backup channel on BitChute and Rumble, because censorship is real. Okay.
That's right. And so, which is why I actually am working on fearlessandfreetv.com. If something happens to this platform, people will be able to go to fearlessandfreetv.com and still be able to catch shows. Awesome. So, although I set very clear intentions and so much protection around my websites and around my domains and around my shows, that I haven't had any issues with that at all.
I started having issues with YouTube. That's why I made BitChute, and then recently just made Rumble. And I started having issues with. I just got out of Facebook jail recently, so it's just. I share the truth in love and light, but sometimes the censors just don't like my truth.
Yeah, well, AI doesn't love and light so much. So,
But it's all good.
yeah. Hey, well,
Just
thank
keep
you so much
reminding.
for being here. All of you who are watching, thank you for joining us this morning. As I always say, remember to hold your light so high others can't help but see their own light. Together, we
Yes,
are creating a world of peace, love, harmony, prosperity, and freedom for all life on earth. And as
yes.
always, get bold, be fearless, and live free.